Hello, nice to see you, nice to meet you. I'm Cieslak, I'm head of technical SEO at OneLee, and today I'm going to talk about migrating to a JavaScript framework. There are different types of migrations, merging or splitting the domains, redesign, rebranding, but whatever you do, it's always a big move. Sometimes it's a change for better, but sometimes it's a change for worse. I work in the agency, and more often we are involved into migrations to a JavaScript framework. From my perspective, it's a totally different type of migration because it adds a lot of complexity to the process that is already complex. What's more, JavaScript has a bad reputation in our industry, and it's not surprising if we look at all issues and limitations that we have with JavaScript. First of all, Google is the only search engine that can execute JavaScript and render the pages at scale. So if we build an app and leave it as it is, probably we will lose your rankings in Yahoo, Bing, and any other search engine. Google for rendering uses a headless browser. It is a normal browser that we use, but it doesn't have a user interface. The problem is that it is Chrome 41. It is a 4-year-old browser, and it doesn't support all modern features. If we compare the number of features supported by Chrome 41 with this available in more up-to-date browser, we will see how big the gap is. And some of these features may affect rendering. So your users may see the page like this, but Google will render the page in this way. Something is missing, I think. Third thing, 2 waves of indexing. Last year, Google revealed how they process JavaScript-heavy websites. So if they detect that the website is powered by JavaScript, they index the page without executing JavaScript. So in case of JavaScript applications, it would be a blank page or almost empty page. If they have free resources, they move to a second wave of indexing. So they execute JavaScript, render the pages, and finally they can index the content. It all takes time and may lead to huge delays in indexing. So the URL might be indexed very quickly, but it may take a longer while to index the content. Days, weeks, months, never know. So I know these things don't put JavaScript in a good light, but I think that we need to accept it. Because someday you might be involved into this type of migrations, and the only thing that we can do is to learn how to do it right. So I would compare it to building a bridge between developers who are in love with JavaScript and search engines with all their limitations. So how to build the bridge, how to migrate to a JavaScript framework? First of all, you need to answer the question how you will serve the content to search engines. There are a few options to choose from, but before I move to them, let me explain a few concepts. In case of JavaScript applications, the source code consists of a few lines of code, and the rest are JS scripts. So after executing JavaScript, all content, navigation, images appear on the page. If it happens in the browser, we can say that it is client-side rendering. If we compare it to baking a cake, Googlebot receives ingredients and a recipe, and it needs to build a cake. The opposite solution is server-side rendering. In this option, the whole magic of building the page happens on the server. So the browser receives a static HTML file filled with the content, navigation, everything what you want to index. So if we compare it to baking a cake, Googlebot receives bake and ready-to-eat cake. Okay, these two concepts are the fundamentals of the solutions that we have. So you can go with client-side rendering. So you build an app and leave it as it is. But in this approach, you fully rely on rendering on Google's end, and you need to accept the risk. Google, to see the content, needs to execute JavaScript and render the page with a 4 years old browser. And it might be risky for dynamic websites, for huge structures. And what's more, it might have a negative impact on crawling budget, because JavaScript is extremely heavy, and Googlebot will spend, Google will need more resources to see what's on page. If you don't want to risk, you can go with dynamic rendering. This term was introduced last year, and Google said that we can detect user agents and send 2 different versions of the page. A JS-powered version to users and pre-rendered static page to search engine crawlers. To do that, you need to build a separate infrastructure on your server to detect user agents, create static HTML snapshots, and then send it to the crawlers. Similar functionality gives you pre-rendering in SaaS model. In this option, you can use external services like pre-render.io that crawls the website, render the pages, create the snapshots to send them to the search engine crawlers. In this approach, you don't need to build a separate infrastructure, so it's a cheaper option and easier to implement. This is very important. These 2 approaches are created only for SEO purpose, so they don't provide additional value to users. If you want to do something that is beneficial for users too, I would go with hybrid rendering. In this option, this is available for React, Vue, and Angular. All modern frameworks have components that server-side render the pages. And on initial request, both users and crawlers receive static pages filled with the content, navigation, images. So everything what you want to index is already there. But all subsequent interactions like clicking, scrolling are served by JavaScript. So your users may still benefit from all fancy features. If you pick this approach, you gain SEO-friendly solution and you gain something more, because this option provides better performance for users, because everything is rendered on the server. Now I should tell you which option is the best. Any ideas? No. Probably my answer will surprise you. It depends. I know this is a universal answer in SEO. So it depends on the source of the traffic. It depends on the source of the traffic. So if a bigger segment of your traffic comes from Bing, Yahoo, any other search engine, client-side rendering is a no-go solution because you will lose a lot of money. It depends on the type of the content. If the content is more or less static, you can try with client-side rendering, but you need to accept the risk. So you need to be aware of the issues that it can trigger. Dynamic rendering or hybrid rendering could be a good option for dynamic content. So, for example, if you have a news portal, you should try these 2 approaches. It depends on the size of the website. So small websites could play with pre-render.io because it will be efficient enough. But huge structures with millions of pages should look for more flexible solutions, so hybrid or dynamic rendering. But everything depends on the skills of your developers and the budget you want to invest. Pre-render IO is a cheaper and easier option, but if you want to provide long-lasting solution, I would go with hybrid rendering. Okay, let's assume that we picked the best option, and now let's move to a preparation stage. I can't imagine migration without 3 must-haves. Staging site, a clickable version that we can crawl and navigate through to check if everything works. If you picked one of the options of serving the content, you need to install it on the staging site too. Covering technical SEO basics. So even if you migrate to a JavaScript framework, you need to cover all good practices. You need to follow good practices of standard migration. And the last thing, coffee, and a lot of coffee. I think this is a must-have for me, but optional for you. In this presentation, I skip everything what relates to a standard migration. I want to keep focus only on specific things for JS-powered website, but you need to remember about them. I'm sorry. Okay, so how to check if you are ready to go, if you can migrate the website? First of all, you need to check if Google or any other search engine can see important elements on your page. To do that, I use mobile-friendly tester or inspect URL in Google Search Console. If you see that the page is rendered fine, probably Google will finally will be able to render the pages. I also use Chrome 41. It is the same browser that Google uses. So if you download this browser, you can navigate through the website and see a bigger picture. But as always, devil is in the details. So you cannot rely on visuals only. You need to go deeper, and you need to check if you send exactly the same things to search engine crawlers and to users in terms of internal linking, images, and the content. Mobile-friendly tester doesn't show the whole picture of doesn't show the whole page, so you don't see what's below the fold. So I always compare DOM, which stands for Document Object Model, so I know that JavaScript was executed, and I take DOM from my browser and I compare it to the version sent to the crawlers. You can take it from mobile-friendly tester. And as you can see, sometimes the difference might be significant. Here, the same page sends totally different signals relating to indexing. So it might be a disaster. And of course, don't forget about mobile version. And yes, a lot has changed over the years, but the basics are still the same. Google for crawling and understanding the structure still needs a standard hyperlinks. So one of the steps of validation is checking if all important sections of your website have good... some colors are incorrect, but first and the last one are correct. The URL in the middle is unfortunately incorrect, so Google won't discover this page. And the pagination might be one of the reasons for disasters in SEO, and one of the most popular type of pagination on JS-powered website is infinite scroll. So if you use scrolling to display additional items on the page, it won't be discovered by Google because Googlebot doesn't scroll. So you need to provide active links, and news from the last 2 weeks, rel next and rel pref are not enough. Okay, if you checked everything, let's migrate the website. And the bad news, just after migration, you need to check everything once again. Plus, let me add a few additional checkpoints. You need to monitor indexing. Where is my presentation? No, it is one of the disasters. So one of the checkpoints is checking indexing, and you can observe it in Google Search Console. Nobody knows what happened. Maybe I clicked something here, but no, it has only 4 buttons. Yeah, and you can monitor indexing in Google Search Console, but it won't tell you if the content was indexed. To check it, I always use a standard command site plus the fragment of the content from your website, and I check it if it's indexed. If yes, you are home. If not, you need to find a reason. And performance. Performance is something that you need to monitor, not only during migration, but a long time after migration. JavaScript is extremely heavy. JavaScript is extremely heavy and may affect performance of your website. If you not optimize the application, it might be extremely laggy. I had a beautiful chart that shows what happened just after migration, and we would see that the performance was, maybe, no. So the real performance was affected by the migration, and the real users perceived first contentful paint as extremely slow, and the number of people that perceived the website is slow, increased by 100%. They migrated in November. Yeah, so it was definitely a change for worse. Okay, let me make a quick summary. I know that JavaScript is trending and community is growing, but you shouldn't blindly follow the trends in technology. Before you make a first step toward migration, answer the question, do I really need a JS application to meet my business goals and to make my users happy? If yes, you can do it. But pick the best option to serve the content to the search engine, and watch out for unique and specific issues that you have never seen before. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?